This is another story from my mother about her difficulties adjusting to life in the United States. Milk in tea. Getting used to life in the United States was not easy for me. Both your father and I were able to come to America because Dad was going to medical school and I was going to college, and we had both learned English in school in Taiwan. However, in the beginning, I still had a hard time understanding all the words around me. I always felt as if I were in a fog, unable to see or talk. When I finally started to get accustomed to things in America, it was like finally being able to see through a frosted window in the spring. At that time, I was going to college and living in an apartment building. One day, my landlady, Mrs. Reese, asked me over for tea. She had asked me a few times before, but I had always said no. I'd always been too scared to spend time with Americans, too scared to try to understand what they said in their fast English. But this time, I agreed. I had never been in Mrs. Reese's apartment before. She lived on the first floor, and I always passed her door when I left school or came back. Left for school or came back. She was always very nice to me. In fact, she let me rent the apartment the second year for the same price. She said she liked having me upstairs because I was so quiet. Mrs. Reese's apartment was much nicer than the apartment I rented from her. Her hallway was a light, shiny wood, but the room where she had me sit for tea had a white carpet. I worried about walking on it with my shoes, but there was no place for me to take them off and no slippers waiting at the door like we always had at home. As I walked carefully, I passed the glass cabinet full of things: pink faded paper roses that had been dipped in wax, a swan that looked like it was cut from a diamond, a glassy-eyed doll with bright pink jewels in her hair, and golden bottles of maple syrup shaped like leaves. I thought maybe she used to work at a gift store. I sat down gently on a black couch as Miss Reese brought out the tea. On the glass table, she had already placed a plate with all kinds of cookies on it, some golden brown, shaped like flowers, with bright red candied cherries in the center, and others as wide as my 2 fingers and half dipped in chocolate and covered with pink, orange, red, and green sprinkles. They were too pretty to eat. Mrs. Reese handed me a cup of tea. It was a white-handed cup with red and yellow roses and gold trim. I wasn't used to holding a teacup with a handle. The cups for tea at home were small and earth-colored, and you could roll them in your hands to keep them warm. But still, the tea smelled welcoming, and I held my cup eagerly as the amber liquid poured in. But then, Mrs. Reese took another gold-trimmed and rose-painted container and held it to me. "Milk?" she asked me. "Milk? What for?" I thought. I shook my head, and then I watched horrified as Mrs. Reese dumped the milk into her own cup of tea. As she stirred, the clear gold-brown color turned muddy, the color of soap scum after cleaning rust. Yuck! What had she done? She had ruined her tea. I tried not to show my disgust, but it was hard. I couldn't help wondering if the milk would curdle in her cup, maybe even turn to cheese. No one in Taiwan would ever put milk in tea. But it was then that I realized I was not in Taiwan anymore. I was in America, and if this was the way the people drank tea here, then I would have to get used to it. Maybe I should try it, I thought. I opened my mouth to ask for the milk, but no words come out. "Would you like sugar?" Mrs. Reese asked me, handing me a spoon and a bowl full of sugar. Sugar? That was strange, but not as strange as milk. "Yes," I said, feeling relieved that I could at least do this correctly. I proudly put in a spoonful and stirred. I took a sip. Not bad. I liked it better plain, but I could drink tea with sugar. And as I drank from my white-handled teacup, I felt like I was slowly on my way to becoming an American. One of the reasons I extra like that story is because now, in the past couple, 20 years, milk tea has become very popular in areas of, in Taiwan and some areas of China. And so it's a more common drink, and it's a more common thing for people to do. Interesting how things change over time.